Instead of using reconcile, could you use points to 3D to generate an axis? And the second one is, can you create postage stamps for the camera instead of cloning the camera?
Sorry, I didn't get the second one.
A postage stamp.
Oh, the postage stamp. What about it?
Can you create for the camera?
Oh, right. Okay. Firstly, no, you can't create postage stamps for a 3D object.
You can for images, for read notes, you can do that.
Well, the read notes has pixels that can create a postage stamp. If you wanted to create a postage stamp for a camera, you mean just like a standard postage stamp to just show that it's a camera?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can assign an icon if you wanted to.
All right.
You could assign an icon to your nodes to make them more visible and more, give yourself a visual cue of what they are. Yes, you can do that.
And point to 3D?
And in fact, you could just use the label and create, point to any sort of icon that lives in the Nuke plugin path to draw that icon in the node view. The reconcile 3D and the points to 3D, they're doing the opposite things of each other. Reconcile 3D extracts a 2D position of a 3D axis or a 3D position in space, while points to 3D does the opposite. It takes 3 2D positions of the same feature, essentially a 2D track, and a camera, and tries to create a 3D position based on where basically where the camera rays overlap, based on that 2D track. So they're basically the inverse of each other.
Thank you.
We have another question.
Yeah, my question is actually not directly related to the 3D part of it, but the problem you had with the cropping of the 3D tracked Bezier shape. There was this nice checkbox, and then it was gone. I've been experiencing the same problem while 2D tracking Rueter shapes, because that also crops on the boundaries of the original position. Right. Is there a very simple way of getting rid of that?
You mean, can we switch back to the
Naz, can we get the screen back, please?
That's the one. Can you look at the screen? It's going to later. So you're saying, oops.
Get something. Oh,
there we are. Cool. So you've got your track, and you're saying you've got, when you put tracking data in here, that it'll crop?
That's
or like this?
Well, actually, I had a tracker below Bezier node.
But you, okay.
Probably was causing, so you can also do the tracker right in there, and then it won't have that problem, I guess.
So the tracker would move your shape down there, and you'd get this problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Bezier node, you have the clip to knob, and by default it clips to the format. So if in the initial stage it overlaps the format, everything outside will be clipped. So if you set this to no clip, it'll keep the bounding box, and once that's moved into frame, it's all good.
I must have been very tired then. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Hi, I was wondering how concatenation works in a script like that. Like if you put a Bezier between transform nodes, does it break the concatenation?
A Bezier between transform nodes would definitely break concatenation, I think, without having tried it.
And grading nodes?
Sorry?
And grading, so it's the same way as shake, like a grade node between transforms would break?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because you're aware that Nuke doesn't concatenate color operations, just transforms, yeah?
Well, shake doesn't either in float.
No, it's floating point. So it's redundant to concatenate color operations when you're color correcting a floating point space. But transform concatenations, yes.
And even better, I think I mentioned this earlier, but now that we've got the script, if I had a whole bunch of 2D corner, like 2D transforms here, corner pins, whatever, scaling down, rotating, lining up, squishing, whatever, right before my 3D, as long as you don't break concatenation right here, this ultimately is kind of affecting the UVs rather than the pixels. So even these guys will concatenate. And your first and only filter hit occurs down here when the whole thing is rendered, even though this is a 2D node, as you can see by the flat edges, and this is a 3D node, rounded edges. They still talk to each other.
Hi. Out of interest, why did you use your expression to remove the jitter from the shot, not just the jitter tab inside Stabilize.
Yeah, rather than using remove jitter.
Oh, right. See, I didn't mention that. I was going to. Thanks for reminding me. Yes, there is a remove jitter option right here, which is effectively doing a similar thing, except it's sort of a black box, as far as I know. You do have some, you have controls over it, but you don't have a visual representation of how much you're removing. You'll probably be test rendering all the time. Mm-hmm. So yes, this is, sorry, this should be remove jitter. This remove jitter would do a very similar thing, but the way I set it up gives you a visual representation and better control of the actual jitter you are removing. Was that the question?
Yeah. Yeah, just so at the end when you see them all, you can actually see the differences between them, and effectively if you recalculate it, redo it, you can see the adjustments. So it's almost interactive. That was the point, rather than being just do it and who knows what's going on. Questions?
More questions?
It's a question for both of you. What's your favourite Nuke node?
Dot.
Yeah, it's favourite Nuke node. Oh no, what's it called?
I forgot. It's loading.
Oh, I can't.
I think my favorite nodes tend to be nodes like the Reconcile 3D node, because they tie the 2D and 3D together and kind of bridge the gap between the two, and that's stuff that if you look at projections, texturing, UVs, all that stuff, you can totally do one thing in Maya or any other 3D app, bring it over to Nuke. But with nodes like Reconcile 3D that kind of just tie those two things together, you can't, there's no way you can create that link with a second application. I mean, there is ways, but I think technically they're not worth setting up.
I'd say my favourite are all the time nodes, because you don't have to use them at the top of the tree, you can use them at other parts in the tree. And having only had time X for so many years, and only being able to use it once and right up the top, I like to be able to frame hold and do all this stuff down the tree.
Look, we've got many frame holds of the same read node here, and it's working just fine.
So that all the time, I'm really big on the time features. I just think it's so nice to have the freedom to do what they should have always done. And I'm crazy on them right now.